Hi, and welcome to orientation. I'm Anthony Comerford, Vice President of Health Services and the Administrator in the Beauvais Health Center. Jefferson's Ferry's mission. Jefferson's Ferry is committed to serving older adults by providing an active lifestyle within an all-inclusive life care retirement community. This concept promotes dignity, privacy, individuality, and independence for each resident. We offer a caring environment with concerned staff, providing security and peace of mind through a focus on resident services. Our vision is to be a life-enriching environment that fosters personal fulfillment, caring relationships, and a positive aging experience. Our culture embraces all members of our community with dignity, compassion, integrity, and competence. Jefferson's Ferry core values are ethics, compassion, teamwork, resident-centered care, and extraordinary service. Visitors in the workplace at Jefferson's Ferry. During this time of COVID-19 pandemic, we are not allowing any visitors to the facility. As this changes, we will notify staff. During normal times, to provide for the safety and security of employees, residents, and facilities at Jefferson's Ferry, staff members are discouraged from having visitors unless absolutely necessary. Staff must receive permission from their supervisor, manager, and the visit must be restricted to a few minutes. All visitors should enter at the community center or the health center entrances and sign in. Once verification of visitor and purpose of visit is confirmed, the visit is restricted to the lobby of the health center or the community center. Employees are responsible for the conduct and safety of their visitors, and should an unauthorized visitor be observed on Jefferson's Ferry property, employees should immediately notify the department head, manager or supervisor, senior manager, security, human resources, or, if necessary, direct the individual to the reception area.
Hi, my name is Maya Bayer, and I'm the Human Resources Manager. Welcome to the Human Resources portion of the Mandatory In-Service. At this time, please take out the red folder with documents that accompany this portion of the training. In that folder, you will find the following documents. On the right side, you have the annual Mandatory Service Agenda Checklist, the Employee and Voluntary Compliance Handbook Acknowledgement, Drug-Free Workplace Policy Acknowledgement, Workplace Violence Acknowledgement, and the Non-Discrimination and Anti-Harassment Policy Acknowledgement. You will have to sign all 5 documents once you have completed the training and send them to Joanne Lehman in the Healthy Living Center. On the left side of your folder, you will find documents and policies that we will be reviewing today. Please take out your Employee and Voluntary Compliance Handbook from the left side. We will not review the entire handbook word for word, but I would like to point out some useful information. Should you have any additional questions, you can always contact Human Resources. The first page is a letter of commitment from President and CEO Bob Caulfield, expressing his dedication to the program. Compliance can be described as conducting business and oneself in an ethical, moral, and legal manner, an aspect of quality improvement and an insurance investment. The 8 elements of our program that I will just briefly review and can be found in your handbook. 1, written compliance policies and procedures that are distributed to promote the organization's commitment to compliance. Number 2, designation of a chief compliance officer who is responsible for the day-to-day operation of the compliance program. This employee would normally report to the chief executive officer. 3, training and education of all affected employees and persons associated with the provider, including executives and governing body members, on compliance issues, expectations, and the operation of the compliance program. 4, compliance program process that maintains compliance and has procedures to respond to allegations or improper or illegal activity. 5, a system to respond to such allegations with disciplinary policies and standards that are distributed to all employees. 6, a system for routinely identifying a compliance risk area specific to the particular provider for self-evaluation of such risks areas includes, but is not limited to, internal audits and as appropriate external audits, and for evaluation of potential or actual non-compliance as a result of such self-evaluations and audits. 7, a system of responding to compliance issues as they are raised, for investigating potential compliance problems, responding to compliance problems as identified in the course of self-evaluation, external evaluation, and audits. And number 8, a policy for non-intimidation, non-retribution, or non-retaliation where employees are protected under Federal Whistleblower Protection Act. The corporate compliance officer is Michelle Birdie, who's also the vice president of human resources. Next, we're going to be moving on to the 7 codes of conduct. Code of conduct number 1, Jefferson's Ferry's employees and agents shall strive to deliver quality healthcare services that are necessary to attain and maintain the residents' physical and mental well-being. Number 2, employees and agents shall strive to assure that each resident is provided a dignified existence that promotes freedom of choice and self-determination and reasonable accommodation of individual needs. Number 3, employees and agents shall comply with all applicable laws and regulations that affect its various businesses. 4, employees and agents shall engage in ethical business relationships. 5, employees and agents shall avoid either conflict of interest or the appearance of any impropriety. 6, employees and agents shall protect Jefferson's Ferry property and that of its residents and respect the property rights of others with whom we do business. Number 7, employees and agents respect each other as human beings. Following the staff code of conduct, you will find a confidentiality and non-disclosure agreement. Jefferson's Ferry Information System contains confidential records pertaining to our business operations, our residents, business associates, healthcare professionals, and employees. Because this information is vital to the operation of our facility and providing quality care and services to our residents, it must be protected. As such, in accordance with current HIPAA regulations and facility policies governing the access, use, and disclosure of protected health and facility information, you have the responsibility to protect such data. Lastly, you will find an anonymous reporting form, which we hope that you feel confident and comfortable to come to Human Resources with any issues or concerns. However, your contact information does not need to be included should you just want to complete the form. Again, we always encourage you to come see us should you have any questions. Jefferson's Ferry is committed to returning everybody back to work as soon as possible through the Return to Work program. It's a program that's created between the employee as well as the supervisor to ensure that the employee can return back to work after a work injury in a safe manner. Once an employee informs Human Resources of a need for an accommodation based on a physician's document, everything will be reviewed. HR and the employee will meet with the supervisor to discuss any required accommodations and develop a potential plan of actions. Once everybody has been in agreement, a plan is implemented and will be monitored. The Return to Work program is available in the HR department. Should you have any questions, you can reach out to Human Resources. Jefferson's Ferry participates in a drug-free workplace. You will find the policy in your folder. Employees are strictly prohibited from unlawfully manufacturing, using, possessing, distributing, and reselling alcohol, drugs, or intoxicants in the workplace. Violations to misuse and/or abuse prescription medication intentionally while conducting company business. Any employees convicted of a criminal drug statute violation must notify Human Resources within 5 calendar days of the conviction. As we all know, there are many different drugs that can impair your job performance and have destructive implications. 10% of U.S. workers abuse drugs and/or alcohol. Most substance abusers are employed. 60% of workers know someone who has reported to work under the influence. If wondering who could be a substance abuser, essentially anybody. Substance abuse costs more than $50 billion annually. Generally, abusers are less protective, make more mistakes, lose more time from work. 47% of all occupational accidents can be attributed to substance abuse. Substance abuse often leads to theft, crime in the workplace. It is not just illegally obtained substances that can be addictive. Prescription drugs can also be addictive. Many people tend to use them for non-medical reasons. They can impair your job and lead to other dangerous drugs. How to recognize and assist an abuser. lateness and absentee and being absent, inconsistency on the job performance, poor judgment and bad decision making, confusion, memory loss, or difficulty concentrating, deteriorating relationship with coworkers and or their parents. There is something you can do to help. You can express your concern and speak with the employee, encourage the person to get help, speak with your supervisor or human resources. You can always refer them to the company paid employee assistance program. Information of that is also available in the human resources office as well as the employee bulletin board, or talk to a healthcare professional. Please ensure to sign all the acknowledgments. There should be 5 of them, and return them to John Lehman. We have a zero tolerance for any form of violence in the workplace. In case of an emergency, you can always dial 911. What you will also find in your folders is a non-discrimination and anti-harassment policy. That training will be following in a few months. Just a few friendly reminders. Be mindful of your cell phone when you're on campus. Really, we have a no cell phone policy, especially when around residents. Smoking is strictly prohibited, besides in the smoking area designated in the gazebo. Health center employees enter through main doors of the health center. Park only in blank and staff spaces. Please ensure that the Jefferson's Ferry parking sticker is visible in the driver's backside of your window.
Hi, my name is Ashley Petito. I'm the Director of Social Work in the Beauvais Health Center. And today we're going to talk about a few different topics. We're going to review residents' rights, advance directives, abuse and neglect, mandated reporters and what being a mandated reporter means, and grievances and missing items. So for all residents in a facility, a resident's bill of right was established in order to ensure that healthcare facilities and the workers honor and respect the wishes of their residents and respect their rights. So residents have the right to dignity and respect. They have the right to privacy and confidentiality. And it's important for us as staff to just be mindful of who's around us and what's going on around us. It's very easy to start a conversation with a coworker about someone or about a problem or concern or something you're addressing, and to have someone else walk up and be nearby within earshot who could overhear that conversation. So we just need to be mindful of respecting the person's privacy and their confidentiality and being attentive to who's around us. I know prior to COVID-19 restrictions, when there was visitation, this is something we would always make sure we mentioned at the nurses station. If you're having a discussion with a coworker and a family member walks up or a resident walks up, it's important that we stop our conversation and address that person in order to then finish the conversation in a private manner. The residents also have the right to considerate and respectful care, quality care and treatment without discrimination. So this includes the typical discrimination that we all think of, such as race, religion, gender, but it also includes things like discrimination regarding pay or source. Residents all have the right to informed participation, meaning that they have the right to be informed regarding their care, informed regarding their treatment options, and informed regarding the pros and cons of what those different options might be. So it's not just something that's up to the care team, it's up to the care team, including the patient or their family. Residents also have the right to freedom of choice, which can include when we feel they're not necessarily making the safest or the best choices. Residents ultimately have the right to self-determination, as long as they've been deemed capable to make those decisions. And it's our job as staff to respect those decisions, even if they're not what we would choose for that person. Residents also have the right to safeguard money and property. This is why in the health center there are locked drawers, locked boxes for this residents to use in their apartment, just as another way to safeguard their property. Residents in assisted living have the ability to lock their doors. Residents in skilled nursing do not, for health and safety reasons. Residents have the right to participate in organizations and activities of their choosing. One example is resident council, which does occur in all 3 levels of care. There's resident council in independent living, skilled nursing, and assisted living. I know those meetings have not been the same as what they would previously look like because of the COVID-19 pandemic. However, there is still active resident involvement in the resident councils in the health center. Residents also have the right to an easy and responsive complaint procedure, which we'll discuss a little more when we talk about grievances and missing items. And finally, residents have the right to safeguards in admissions, transfers, and discharges. So what this means is that when we're working through those different types of transitions in care, residents have the right to know why they're being discharged or transferred somewhere else. They have the right to appeal a discharge if they felt it was inappropriate, and we as a facility can only initiate a discharge for certain reasons, such as if a resident no longer requires the level of care we provide, if a resident requires a higher level of care than we're able to provide, or if a resident is a harm to themselves or others, or if it's per their request, things like that. So they do have rights just to protect them from, again, almost bouncing back to the discrimination. We can't just get rid of someone and discharge them because they're not the easiest person to deal with. Next, we're going to talk about advanced directives. So for those of you who are not aware or unsure, advanced directives are written documents, written directives that are prepared for an individual, and it allows that person to detail out what their wishes are to ensure that those wishes should be honored if they become unable to express them at some point in their life, whether it's due to confusion or being in a coma or any other reason why someone might not be able to verbalize and express their wishes. So the first advanced directive we're going to talk about is a healthcare proxy. A healthcare proxy is a form that allows an individual to designate another person as their proxy to make decisions for them regarding their healthcare if they become unable. The healthcare proxy only takes effect if the person is unable to make their own medical decisions. And when it does take effect, it allows the proxy to make decisions based on the person's known wishes. So a healthcare proxy, whoever you might pick, should be someone who you know would respect and honor your own wishes regarding what you would want for healthcare and interventions down the line. A healthcare proxy is something that we strongly encourage with all the residents. I strongly encourage everyone to have one. You're never too young to have a healthcare proxy. Again, it only takes effect if you become unable. And by the point you become unable, you're no longer able to say who you would want to make your decision. So it's important to write that down and get it all on paper so that the people who provide care for you, the residents, are aware. The other document that goes hand in hand with the healthcare proxy. So a living will allows someone to dictate out different treatment preferences, such as would they ever want a feeding tube? Would they ever want to be kept alive using machinery or different mechanical methods? Would they want things like dialysis or blood transfusions? Certain religions have strong feelings about things one way or the other. So it's a supportive document that goes along with the healthcare proxy to allow us to know exactly what someone's wishes are. The most common things that come to mind when we talk about advanced directives are do not resuscitate, a DNR. What the DNR order really is just indicating is that if someone's heart were to stop, would they want us to start chest compressions? And if someone has a DNR, the answer is no. They would not want us to initiate CPR. They would want to allow what's called natural death. The other thing that goes hand in hand with the DNR is a DNI, a do not intubate. This is speaking strictly to would someone want to be intubated, have a tube placed down their throat, and connected to a breathing machine such as a ventilator in order to assist with breathing if someone was struggling or unable. This has been something that's been very important for us at the health center to review with residents and families more recently, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic, to ensure that we really know what everyone's wishes are. The other thing that you'll see more frequently in the health center is comfort measures and comfort care. There's residents in the health center have orders for comfort measures only or comfort care order. What that means is that our treatment goals have shifted from, instead of aggressively searching for an answer or a reason why someone is dealing with a certain ailment, our goal is now shifted to providing comfort to that person. And that can be anything from relieving pain to reducing any emotional distress, such as anxiety or depression. And that can be achieved in a variety of ways, whether it's supportive visits, medication interventions, psychotherapy, a whole bunch of things that we can do just to try to minimize anyone's pain and suffering and ensure they're comfortable in what typically ends up being toward the end of their life. The comfort care orders and the comfort measure orders can include things like do not hospitalize orders, indications if someone would no longer want to be weighed or no longer want lab work, as well as if they would want any artificial nutrition or hydration, which typically at a comfort care stage you do not. And finally, the hot pink form you see on your screen is the MOLS form, medical orders for life-sustaining treatment. This is a form we're working to roll out in the health center. We're working to convert residents over to it. And it just allows us to get all of those advanced directives, all of those wishes regarding a DNR, DNI, comfort measures or not, hospitalizations in the future, would they be wanted or not, information regarding feeding tubes, IV fluids, antibiotics, all sorts of stuff on this one form that allows for the care team or the emergency medical service staff, EMTs who come into the building, whoever it might be, to know what someone's wishes are in one concise form. The other nice thing about this form is that it's something that's honored across all levels of care. So it's honored in the environments we have at Jefferson Ferry and independent living and assisted living at skilled nursing, but it's also honored in the hospital setting as well as in hospice if someone were to choose to go to inpatient hospice. So it's a little more of a detailed form, but we are working to get everyone in the health center transitioned over to it to just make that an easier document to access, easier for the staff to see one form and know exactly what's going on, what they should be providing to this resident with regards to care. So when we are in the different levels of care, it's important for us to know exactly where to find advanced directives if there were ever an emergency. In independent living apartments, all of their residents have a plastic sleeve on their refrigerator. And in that plastic sleeve is their advanced directives, their information regarding if they were a DNR, they have a healthcare proxy, anything like that. It would all be kept in that one location. In assisted living, they also have a plastic sleeve on the refrigerator that has a form inside that indicates on that form, along with emergency contacts and things like that, whether the resident would like CPR or to be a DNR. And the assisted living nursing station has a book that also lists who's a DNR and who's CPR. And finally, in skilled nursing, we have a few different ways to indicate if someone is a DNR. If someone wishes to be a DNR, do not resuscitate, they'll have a pink or red wristband, which is their identification band that they wear on their wrist. They'll also have a red dot on the spine of their paper chart, which is kept at the nurse's station. And they'll also have a red dot alert in SigmaCare, which is the electronic medical record. So in the electronic medical record, when you sign into a resident's profile, you'll see to the right of their name, along with other alerts for other important things for the staff to know, there'll be a red dot, which indicates do not resuscitate. And finally, there's a red dot on the footboard of their bed, which again is just an indicator to staff that this person's a DNR. And we always cross-check if there was ever an emergency back to the chart to ensure that all of that information is still correct, because people do change their minds at times and advanced directives do have to be updated. For residents who are CPR who wish resuscitation, they would have a white wristband and they would not have any of the red dots. So their chart spine will not have a dot on it. Their footboard will not have dots on it. Next, we're going to talk about abuse and neglect. So it's very important for everyone to be aware that all allegations of abuse or neglect must be thoroughly investigated. And this is regardless of a resident's cognitive status or any behaviors they might have. It's important for us as a staff to look through everything and make sure that this person is in a safe environment and that they're not being abused or neglected. There's some different types of abuse, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. The first type, which is the type that comes up and comes to people's minds more often, is physical abuse. So that's any willful, inappropriate physical contact. And this can include things such as pushing, shoving, hitting, kicking, biting. It can also include things like intentionally bumping into someone. The next one is emotional abuse, which is inflicting pain or distress via verbal or nonverbal means. So that could be, sarcasm, negative comments, threats. It can also be through isolation or seclusion, which is something that's a little more difficult now with the COVID-19 pandemic because the residents across all levels of care have really been more isolated and secluded than they ever have been in the past. So what they're speaking to you about abuse and it being abusive is if you're isolating a resident against their wishes and for no known cause. If there's not a medical reason someone needs to be on isolation or on contact precautions, if there's not a reason someone should be secluded to their room, and we as staff just decide, oh, that person's being difficult, they can stay in their room today, that is what it's looking at. There's also sexual abuse, which is any non-consensual sexual contact of any kind. So that includes things that typically come to mind, such as rape or sexual assault, but it can also include non-consensual kissing or hugging or groping. So again, just important that we as staff know what to look for and to remember to take any allegations seriously. There's also neglect, which would be willfully failing to provide the needed care. So if the doctor writes orders that John Doe gets medication at 2 p.m. and he's supposed to get a treatment at 2 p.m. on a wound, and we fail to change the wound for wound treatment for weeks, that's neglect. There's also misappropriation, which is the deliberate misuse, misplacement, or exploitation of a resident's belongings or money without the resident's consent. It's important to know that we shouldn't be taking money from residents, accepting gifts. That's why we have the employee gift fund around the holidays. It's also important to know that we want to ensure residents have the keys or the ability to use the appropriate ways to safeguard their money. So in assisted living and skilled nursing, that's ensuring that every resident was offered or has access to the key for the lock drawer if they decide to use it. So the next topic we're going to talk about is mandated reporting and what it means to be a mandated reporter. As per the Elder Justice Act of 2010, all staff in a long-term care facility, including any vendors who come in from the outside, any contractors we have in the buildings, are mandated reporters. So because we're mandated reporters, that means we are required by law to report any reasonable suspicion of abuse or neglect to the Department of Health as well as to the police if needed. Administration, social work, director of nursing, administration, anyone is able to assist in filing a report, but you're not required to notify them. You're not required to request assistance. You can report individually. It's important just to remember that it's any reasonable suspicion. None of us are private investigators. It's not our job to be a private investigator and figure out if it actually happened or not. If there's a reason to be suspicious of it, it's important to report it and then let someone else take care of the investigation and see if it is true or not. Failure to report can result in a $200,000 fine. The other thing it's important for some of the staff to remember is that some of us have some kind of credentialing to do our job, whether it's a license or a certification. And it's important to remember that a lot of those licenses and certification are tied to a code of ethics, which is also typically discusses the fact that we're mandated reporters. So I always tell everyone it's important to remember if you have any reasonable suspicion, it's better to report and be wrong than to not report and have to deal with the consequences of not only someone could have been in harm's way, but also the consequences that could occur with regards to your licensure or your credentialing. The fine does increase to $300,000 if you fail to report, and that results in increased harm. So if you fail to report and another instance, another occurrence happens, that can result in an increased fine. And the final topic we're going to discuss is grievances and missing items. So as we discussed earlier on, residents have the right to an easy to use and responsive complaint procedure. So all grievances and missing items should be immediately reported to social work as well as to nursing. You can ask for the nursing supervisor, the charge nurse. You can ask for the director of nursing or assistant director of nursing. Any of us can take a grievance. I always like to encourage staff that if there's a grievance on off hours or there's something missing on off hours, to also leave a message for social work, leave a Sigma message through the electronic medical record, send me an email, something so that the next day, if for some reason the communication doesn't trickle down, I'm aware of the missing items so that we can properly investigate. So the process for grievances and missing items is very similar. For grievances, we do obtain statements from the staff. If it's a care concern, we can also interview other residents to see if any other residents are having similar complaints. We'll also look at whatever data is available to us. For example, the call bell times are all recorded to a central system. So if someone is complaining, it's taking for, however long, 30 minutes, an hour, 10 years to get a call bell answered, we can go back in the system and check and see exactly what time that person rang their call bell and how long it took for the staff to turn it off to go in and address the concern. It's important for staff to remember when you answer call bells that if you're not addressing the problem, you shouldn't be turning off the call bell because the call bell is what indicates to other staff that there's still an issue that needs to be resolved. So if I, as a social worker, go in and answer a call bell and someone needs to go to the restroom, I'm not able to provide that level of care, I would leave the call bell on and then go tell another staff member who could go in and assist with that. If I go in and a resident says, I dropped my remote on the floor and I pick it up, I'm going to shut the call bell off. For missing items, again, a similar process with the addition of a search. Anytime something is missing, we do a thorough search of the resident's room, their personal property, as well as wherever they might have been last. If we knew a resident was in the common area for a meal and now something's missing, we can check the common area. Or if we know something went missing at a mealtime, we can check the pantry and check the kitchen and see if somehow it got sent back on a tray. We also obtain statements from whoever might be involved, staff, residents, family. Sometimes residents will report an item missing because they forgot that their family took it home, or because they're confused and they just don't know that their family took their purse home 3 years ago and they think it's gone now. So while we still investigate, it's our job to just figure out where that item might be and ensure it's safe and that it wasn't inappropriately taken or maliciously taken. All investigations must be completed within 5 days, and the results of the investigation must be reported back to the involved parties. So whether that's the resident, the family, or both. So it's our job as social work, nursing supervision to collect the information for the investigation and then report back to the person on what our findings are. If the allegation, if it's a grievance, a complaint that involves any abuse or neglect, it must immediately be reported to social work, director of nursing, assistant director of nursing, the supervisor, or administration as soon as possible so that we can determine if it's something that needs to be called in, as well as begin an investigation process and ensure we're safeguarding the resident during the time we do the investigation. And if anyone has any questions, I'm normally in the building Monday through Friday, and I'm here 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. My extension is on the slide. It's 3262. And I'd be more than happy to discuss anything or answer any questions. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Kathy Budapest. I'm the Assistant Director of Nursing over in the Beauvais Health Center today. And I'd like to welcome you and tell you about some pretty important topics that we can cover. Resident care and safety. We're going to go through abuse. Abuse is the willful infliction of injury, unreasonable confinement, intimidation, or punishment with resulting physical harm, pain, or mental anguish. It includes the deprivation by an individual, including a caretaker, of goods or services necessary to attain or maintain physical, mental, and psychosocial well-being. Also presumes that instances of abuse of all residents, even those in a coma, cause physical harm, pain, or mental anguish. Verbal abuse, the use of oral, written, or gestured language that willfully includes disparaging and derogatory terms to residents or their families or within hearing distance, regardless of their age, ability to comprehend, or disability. Examples include threats of harm or saying things to frighten a resident. For example, telling a resident that he or she will never be able to see his or her family again. Sexual abuse includes, but is not limited to, sexual harassment, coercion, or assault. Physical abuse includes, but again is not limited to, hitting, slapping, bumping, pinching, kicking, shoving, controlling behavior through corporal punishment, or sexual molestation. Mental abuse includes, but is not limited to, humiliation, harassment, threats of punishment, or deprivation. Involuntary seclusion means the separation of a resident from residence or from his or her room. Confinement to a room with or without roommates against the resident's will or the will of the resident's legal representative. Emergency or short-term monitored separation from other residents is not considered involuntary seclusion and may be permitted for a limited period as a therapeutic intervention to reduce agitation until professional staff can develop a plan of care to meet the resident's needs. Neglect is the failure to provide goods, services necessary to avoid physical harm, mental anguish, or mental illness. For example, resident left to sit or lie in urine or feces, isolating resident by leaving them in the room or other locations apart from a temporary separation occurring for assessment and care planning purposes, failing to answer call bells or to provide needed assistance. Failure to provide timely, consistent, safe, adequate, appropriate services, treatments, and/or care to a resident or a resident healthcare facility while the resident is under the supervision of the facility. This includes, again, is not limited to nutrition, medication, therapy, sanitary clothing, and surroundings and activities of daily living. Mistreatment could be the inappropriate use of medications, inappropriate isolation, or inappropriate use of physical or chemical restraints on or of a nursing resident of a residential healthcare facility while the resident is under the supervision of the facility. Jefferson's Ferry has zero tolerance for residents' abuse. Residents have rights. The residents have the rights to be treated with dignity, considerate and respectful care, quality of care and treatment without discrimination, informed participation, freedom of choice to make their own independent decisions, the safeguard of money and property, personal privacy and confidentiality. They have the right to participate in organizations and activities of their choice, easy to use and responsive complaint procedure. They have the right to exercise all their rights without fear of reprisal, and safeguards and admissions, non-discrimination, and transfer and discharge. Hand washing. We're talking about maintaining sanitary conditions in the Bovay Health Center. Hand washing is the single most effective way to prevent the spread of infections. You're going to wash your hands for at least 20 seconds, singing happy birthday 2 times. Clean under and around jewelry, for example, rings and watches. Keep jewelry to a minimum and use hand sanitizer to supplement hand washing. Residents are assessed for risk of elopement. What does elopement mean? Elopement means that we may have a resident that's confused and may want to start to wander. She may want to wander off the unit. And we have a code here. It's called Code Orange. And all the residents are assessed for their risk for elopement on admission. If they are at risk, they're issued a roam alert armband. In the unlikely event that a resident is missing, Code Orange will be paged and an immediate facility-wide search will ensue. Administration searches the first floor hallways, offices, conference rooms, dining rooms, and health center stairwells. Nursing searches all residents' rooms, bathrooms, closets, underbeds, nursing station, and care areas such as shower, utility, and pantries. Housekeeping searches storage areas in the basement, first and second floors, and the generator rooms. Maintenance and recreation search the outside grounds, side and back parking lots to Route 347 and Wireless Road. When we announce a Code Orange, we announce it over the walkie-talkie system that we have here. We also use our emergency page number in the health center, which is extension 2648. That can be dialed from any phone. And we'll announce Code Orange, and we will also say the resident's name. As with any emergency announcement, we will say it loud and clearly 3 times. Code Orange, Mary Jane Smith. Code Orange, Mary Jane Smith. Code Orange, Mary Jane Smith. That is not a violation of HIPAA or confidentiality because we as staff members need to know who which resident we are looking for. Once the resident is located, we will announce, well, all clear. What is HIPAA? I just talked a little bit about HIPAA, confidentiality. HIPAA actually stands for the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act of 1996. It is a federal law whose primary purpose is to protect the privacy of health information. Protected health information, sometimes known as PHI, is health information that is transmitted or maintained in any form or medium, for example, electronic, paper, or oral. Privacy and security practices should be practiced by every member of Jefferson Ferry, both here at Jefferson Ferry and in your home life too. When in doubt, don't give your information out. Log off before you walk away from your computer. Double check fax numbers before sending. Do not send emails or use the internet unless the connection is secure and approved. Identify the caller before releasing confidential information. Never share your passwords with anyone. Maintain the security of all resident information in all its medium like paper, electronic, and oral. Discuss resident information in private locations. Access information on a need-to-know basis only to do your job, and dispose of confidential information according to proper procedures. For example, locked files shred bin. General safety precautions as far as for staff. Approach corners with caution. Someone may be on the other side. Use the proper tool for the job. Report any equipment that is not working properly. Place heavy objects on the bottom of the load. Do not leave equipment or supplies in corridors or exits. Do not use benches, tables, chairs, boxes, etc. as a step ladder. Keep floors dry of spills and clean up immediately. Do not place items that will protrude into a room or hallway. Keep cords from crossing hallways or rooms. Place caution signs in work areas, for example, a wet floor sign. Follow manufacturer's directions when using chemicals, equipment, and other supplies. Report unsafe acts or conditions to your supervisor as soon as possible. Pick up any debris from the floor. Report any burned out light bulbs. Do not run in the facility. Do not engage in horseplay or practical jokes. Obey all warning signs and labels. Turn machinery off when not in use or when machinery is unattended. Learn the right way to do the job. If you're unsure, ask for instructions. Pull wheeled vehicles through doorways so you can see where you're going. Always walk at a safe speed and push carts slowly. Push carts from the end and not from the sides. Wear non-skid soles and rubber heels. Keep your shoes tied. That can cause falls. Do not read while walking. Do not obstruct your vision with loads that you may be carrying. Stay alert for anything that's in the path of traffic. Keep carts out of the way so they won't create an obstacle to others. Always use handrails on stairways for extra support when going down or up the stairway. And be careful when you open doors. Needles and sharp objects pose a serious workplace injury. The objective of this discussion is to heighten awareness of the potential risks of needles and sharp objects in the workplace and to act accordingly. To understand that all work environments contain such potential risks, which could puncture skin and cause cuts. The hazards proposed by cuts and puncture wounds caused by needle sticks, scissors, wires, knives, and other sharp objects are prevalent in the healthcare and hospitality industries. Caution should be exercised when using needles or any other sharp object, as well as reaching into bags and containers. Sharp objects, such as needles, insulin tip pen needles, lancet, or any other sharp object, must be disposed of properly. The purpose of the sharps container is to prevent injury as well as transmission of bloodborne pathogens. If you are unsure where to locate a sharps container, ask your supervisor. It is imperative that sharps are disposed of properly. I'd like to talk about our Falling Star program a little bit. Many of our residents over at the health center are unaware of their own limitations, or they may have had frequent falls. So you may, if you travel through the health center, see stars outside the door. That just means that the resident may need an extra set of eyes just to watch to make sure that they're safe at all times. We did talk about the bloodborne pathogens, and we wanted to talk a little bit also about personal protective equipment that is also known as PPE. Over here in the health center, we do have PPE available. Includes gowns, gloves, masks, goggles, and face shields. We would put use signage on the door and let you know if you needed to enter that room wearing any of the above signage. Always check with the nurse before entering the room. Most of our gloves over here are vinyl, but if you do have a latex allergy, that could be very serious. So you have to be aware that in the health center, latex is present in certain medical equipment. Flu prevention. We want to make sure that we prevent our residents and our staff and ourselves and our families from getting the flu. So a flu vaccine is encouraged that everyone take it each year. As in the past years, if you refuse to take the flu vaccine, you will be required to wear a facial mask from the moment the Commissioner of Health decides that it's flu season to the moment he declares flu season over. I'd like to talk a little bit about call bells. That is the resident's lifeline over in the health center. Anyone can answer a call bell. Any staff member can knock on the door. Remember, this is the resident's home. Enter, announce yourself, say who you are, and say that you saw the light on. They perhaps may just want you to close the blinds so they could see the TV. They may want you to reach a box of tissues, and anyone can do that. There's no special training. However, if they ask for assistance to get up out of bed, even if they ask for a drink of water, I would prefer that you tell them you'll take their questions or their requests to the nurse. Some of our residents do need are on special diets. Or name tags, visual indicator. Some of our residents are visually impaired. They may not be totally blind, but they may have problems with their vision. So their name tags are in orange color outside their door. We want to make sure that everything is person-centered care. We ask the residents their preferences when they come in. What time do they want to wake up? What time do they want to go to bed? And do they prefer a shower or a bath? We want to make their stay here at Beauvais Health Center as comfortable as possible. I would also like to just say a word too about restraints. We don't have any restraints, but we do have alarms. Some of our residents do require alarms that may let us know that they are trying to get up unattended, and it is for their safety. Again, the resident asks, "Can I take this off?" Please just refer to the nurse. We have an exposure control plan here. Also, we talked a little bit about the safety of the sharps containers, but if you are exposed to blood, and you do have a needle stick, you need to contact your supervisor so we can go through the exposure control plan with you and send you for further testing. And on the last note, I would like to say about elevator safety. One thing over the years that we've noticed here is that when we press the button to go on the elevator, we have to remember to stand back because usually there's someone waiting to come out the door. So with that in mind, I will be going out the door and saying goodbye and thank you for your time.
Hi, everyone. My name is Patty Lowry, Director of Maintenance at Jefferson's Ferry. Welcome to our annual mandatory in-service. We'll be going over safety training, fire safety rules and regulations, hazard communications right to know, SDS, formerly known as MSDS, Material Data Safety Sheets, OSHA, Rules and Regulation Book, lockout, tagout, and disaster training. The Vincent Beauvais Health Center at Jefferson's Ferry, OSHA. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration, established in 1970 and given the power to enforce rules in 1990. It was established to protect employees. Here at Jefferson's Ferry, we are committed to providing you with a safe and healthy workplace. There is an OSHA Rules and Regulations book located in the maintenance office for your reading if you're ever interested. It is the responsibility of all employees to participate in the maintenance of a safe environment. This is everyone's job, not just housekeeping. Make sure spills are mopped up immediately. Put a yellow sign down on the wet floor area. Pick up dropped articles from the floor. Use proper equipment, lifting equipment, and other items. Nurses' aides must follow the assignment. If the assignment is incorrect, you must report it to your nurses so they could reassess. Remove all equipment in need of repair immediately. It is a source of danger. Use lockout tagouts to alert anyone of a need of repair. Know the location of all emergency equipment such as fire extinguishers and alarms. All electrical appliances brought to the facility must be checked by maintenance. A lockout tagout shows who locked out the mechanism, the time, the date, and the department. Tagouts should be durable and securely fastened to the locking mechanism so they don't fall off accidentally. Tagout should only be applied and removed by the same authorized individual. This most likely will be done by our licensed electrician. When something is reported to maintenance, such as kitchen equipment or some kind of machinery, our electrician will go there, check it out. He would lock out, tag out, so it could not be plugged in, and he would be the only one with the key to unlock it once it is repaired. Employee right to know under the OSHA standards. The purpose of OSHA Hazard Communication Standard is to ensure that you understand the hazards of chemicals you work with and know how to safely use these chemicals. Under this standard, you are given certain rights as follows. The right to have access to the company's written hazard communication program, the right to request and receive information on the hazardous substances in which you will come in contact with, the right to be informed and trained about the hazardous chemicals used in your work area and methods you can take to protect yourself from these hazards of these chemicals, the right to know the methods and means to recognize the presence of release of hazardous chemicals in the work area, the right to file a complaint with OSHA if you believe that exercising your rights under the standards have discriminated you against. Okay. The safety data sheets, which is formerly known as the material data sheets, are located in the housekeeping office. They're located by the time clock in the main kitchen, and one is by the director of nursing. If you come in contact with any kind of chemical, there'll be an identification product by the manufacturer and the distributor's name and phone and address. There'll be ingredients and chemical trade of secret claims. The first aid measures, if you are anything went to your skin or your eyes. If there was a firefighting measures, if you needed an extinguisher or a chemical hazard from a fire. A list of emergency procedures, protective machine equipment, properly contain and clean up. Accidental release measures list emergency procedures, protective equipment, proper methods of containment and cleanup. Handling and storage list precautions for safe handling and storage, including incomparabilities. So to Section 8, which is exposure controls, personal protection, physical and chemical properties. Other information is also found in these MSDS sheets. Here is a sample label that would be on the product. That it has a product identifier, a signal word, pictograms, hazard statements, precautionary statements, and a supplement information. Globally harmonized system pictograms. These labels that you're seeing will be identified on each of the chemicals that you may come in contact with, and it will tell you how to treat it and what would occur if you did come in contact with these particular chemicals. Okay. Emergency and disaster preparedness, the policy and procedures in place that we have here at Jefferson's Ferry, water supplies, emergency food supply, nursing supplies, linens, and other items that we have for snow or hurricanes or fires. Okay, snow emergencies. We stay here for the duration of any snowstorm. All of the staff, including nursing, maintenance, housekeeping, and dining, we would be here for the duration to do all snow removal, to make sure the residents and the staff members are safe entering and leaving the building. We do have a safety committee. They meet monthly to go over any kind of safety issues that might occur. They're reported from each safety committee member, and they're brought to the meeting, and then they go over what we can do to make a safe place here at Jefferson's Ferry. Okay, this is a list of all our emergency supplies that are on site at all times. It's mandatory, and to make sure if we are here in a disaster situation that we are well equipped with everything that we need. We have mattresses, clothes, flashlights, batteries, duct tape. We have radios that we can communicate with each other during the situation we were here during Hurricane Sandy. and we all communicated with each other through the radios. We residents were here. We didn't lose power, even though we are on generator. We didn't need it, and the staff members took care of the residents, and they didn't even know there was a hurricane and the capacity that Sandy was. Part of one of my trainings is fire drills. I do 2 a month each shift, whether it be morning, afternoon, or evening. We did have an actual fire in the laundry room in January on a Saturday. And when Dr. Redmond was called, and that's our call for a fire, we did have a great response from all team members that were on duty that day. So the training is working out very well, and everybody knew what to do, and we safely put out the fire, and we saved the building from great damage and the resident safety. So why we are here is uphold our mission for the best quality of life for the residents, make Jefferson's Ferry a safer place to live and work, to educate the staff. That was very important, to make sure that the staff was educated to know what to do during a fire. And as I said previously, it worked out very nicely and everyone did a great job. The fire procedure. Once the location of the fire has been determined from the fire alarm control panel, a staff member must notify other members via radio, emergency channel 1, or from the health center phone, and announcing on the paging system Dr. Redmond and the location of the fire 3 times calmly and clearly. The do's: you stay calm, switch the radio channel 5 emergency channel. When responding to an alarm, locate available fire extinguisher and bring it to the alarm location. That's on your way to the fire. Once the location is announced and you're on your way to that location, as you're going there, you'll be passing multiple fire extinguishers and you could grab one on your way. You don't have to go looking for one, and before, just go to the alarm. And when you pass one, just grab one. When carrying a fire extinguisher, like a baby. I know it might be difficult as you're running with the fire extinguisher. Sometimes it's swinging. It's not good to do that. So you would carry the fire extinguisher as in the picture. The don'ts: you don't panic. Don't run to a fire. You'll be out of breath, and by the time you get there, you wouldn't have any energy. Don't use the elevators. Don't leave the doors open, which I'll explain why in a little bit. Okay. This type of fire extinguishers. Most common fire extinguishers here at Jefferson's Ferry are 10-pound ABC. A is trash, wood, and paper. B is liquids. C is electrical equipment. Additional types of fire extinguishers. K is cooking fires that have animal or vegetable fats. We're not in the business of fighting fires. Don't panic. Aim at the base of the fire extinguisher following the pass method. Only use one fire extinguisher at a time to extinguish the fire. Only one is to be used. If it's more than one, then the fire department should be on its way, and then you would be in danger, so you would only use one. We'll have to follow the RACE procedure. How to operate a fire extinguisher is the pass method. It's pull, aim, squeeze, and sweep. The RACE method is rescue, alarm, confine, extinguish. These are the fire magnets that are found in independent living and in the Beauvais Center. The fire extinguisher evacuation procedure that you see in the orange and white is found in independent living. They're magnets that are on the back of the door. That is the procedure for independent living residents to follow if there was a fire. The clear magnet is in the Vincent Beauvais Center, the assisted living and skilled nursing and the memory care. If there was a fire and Dr. Redmond was bringing us to that area, that would let us know that that room has been checked. That clear magnet would be on the door jamb outside the door with the door closed, and that would mean that a previous staff member was there, evacuated the room, and that we could go on to the next room in that corridor. how to use a fire blanket. You pull a tab on the fire blanket. It would look like a flat pancake, and it has a tab on the bottom. You would pull that tab. It would open up that square, and a blanket would come down. You would extend the blanket as if you were making a bed, and you would drape it over the individual, God forbid they were on fire, or a piece of furniture. You would cradle the individual after the blanket was on them, so you would kind of put the blanket over them and pat out the individual. Fires need 3 components to occur. They need fuel, oxygen, and heat of ignition. Take away any of these and the fire goes out. Smoke barrier doors. Smoke barrier doors create a sealed compartment. Move to the other side of them opposite the fire for protection and evacuation. Fire doors will automatically close when the alarm is activated. Fire suppression system uses water located in the ceiling, covered 9 feet radius. Heat activated. As you walk down corridors, you will see flat caps. Underneath those caps are these sprinkler systems. If they're heat activated, those sprinklers would pop down and they would spray water on the fire. As it says, a 9 feet radius. Covered with the white metal cone cap as well. There's different type of smoke detectors. In independent living, apartment smoke detectors are localized. Localized means that if there was a smoke situation in an independent living apartment, that the smoke detector would go off in the apartment, but would not go to our alarm panel at the front desk. Corridors and HVAC systems are centralized. Centralized means if smoke was in the corridors or in the HVAC systems in independent living, it would go to the alarm panel at the front desk. All of the health center smoke detectors are centralized. That means anywhere in the health center, in a room, in a corridor, in a stairwell, it would all go to the alarm control panel at the front desk. We have a response plan, ServPro. I got together with ServPro to put all information into 4 booklets that are created we created them online. There's 2 sets. There's one at each desk, one in Beauvais Center and one in Independent Living. And it has all our information. If there was a fire department came and they needed some information on a water supply and what our account numbers were. If we needed PSEG information, that's in the books. If we needed to get in touch with our CEO, Bob Caulfield, or any of vice presidents, all that information is in these books at the desks in Beauvais and in Independent Living. Does anybody have any questions? I'm not there to answer them for you, but I'm going to ask you some questions that I'm hoping that you have the answers to. What is the fire term used at Jefferson's Ferry? The fire term used at Jefferson's Ferry is Dr. Redmond. What should you do when the fire alarm goes off? You should go to that location where the Dr. Redmond's being called. If it's Dr. Redmond, room 200, you will head to room 200. True or false? Does pass mean pull, aim, squeeze, and sweep? That's true. How do staff members know that a room or an apartment has been evacuated and been checked? You would see the magnet on the outside of the door or the door jamb. True or false? A water extinguisher can be used on all types of fires. That's false. True or false? Does a fire need 3 components? That's true. What does RACE stand for? This is very important to know when you're going to a fire. It's Rescue, Alarm, Confine, Extinguish. Okay, I'm hoping you all got that right. I'm hoping that you answered all the questions. If you need any further assistance with any of this information, being that we're not doing this in person, feel free to come to my office. I'm located in the basement in independent living. Or call me at extension 2650, and I'll be more than happy to go over any of these instructions with you, or if you have any questions about our safety here at Jefferson's Ferry. So hoping to see you around the community. Stay well and stay safe.